This is an important monologue that I think all of you should listen till the very end. The relationship between the Bitcoin and the United States dollar. As the Bitcoin rises in value, is it actually lowering the value of the US dollar? In other words, is it devaluing the US dollar? How far is Bitcoin going to go? And what are the factors driving it up? And why is it that when Bitcoin goes up, the US dollar feels pressured? This is the data that we are going to be discussing today, and I have a small infographic for you. As always, please like this video, and if you have not already subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel. Here we go.
Me and my daughter decided to come to 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗏, and hence when Diya was diagnosed with myopia and she had a -2 power, and I was here in this beautiful sanctuary, words can't explain because you yourself have to come and experience this.
The core conflict, scarcity versus elasticity. I don't know how many of you know this, but there are only 21 million Bitcoins possible, and about 19.8 have already been mined, meaning they've already been discovered, which leads to only about 1.2 million Bitcoins remaining. And this is what gives it that float, where people keep saying that, oh, Bitcoin is rising in value. The reason it is rising in value is because it is in limited quantity. Don't ask me how a Bitcoin is worth $128,000, because there is no asset behind the Bitcoin. What is behind Bitcoin is that it is a fixed supply and it is democratic. And I'm going to give you a few more reasons why Bitcoin has its charm, why it is being used as a hedge against the dollar. What is wrong with the US dollar is that the number of dollars that can be printed is effectively infinite. There are no rules or regulations. Anytime somebody wants to print more dollars, they can print so. And those of us who are holding existing dollars, when more dollars come into the pipeline, that means it effectively makes us poorer. Actually, there is no way around it. So the United States should not be printing their dollars. In fact, it was Volcker's policy that he would not print the currency, rather he would use the interest rates to go up or down to manage the economy. Well, they heard it for some time, and then since I think quantitative easing started in 2008, that has gone out the window. Now we are stuck with a situation where the dollar is being printed as if there is no tomorrow. In fact, right now the US government is shut down because the debt ceiling, where you have now sitting at 37.8 trillion, that needs to be raised, which means it has to be approved by Congress and the Senate, and both are holding out because there are pet projects that Democrats have that they want the Republicans to authorize, and the Republicans are saying no way. As a matter of fact, it is now well known that Trump cannot wait for the 60-day limit to run out, because once the 60-day limit runs out, federal employees could be permanently dismissed. And that means that it will going to be a smaller government, and it is believed that that's one way the Trump administration can get rid of a lot of insiders who seem to be more Democrats first and public servants next. And this confusion in what it should be as far as a employee is concerned or a professional is concerned is something that I've expressed my concerns many a time. Your professional obligations comes first. You are a Democrat, you are a Republican, all those things you express that only at the ballot box. That should not be entering your mind space. It should not be in your office space. And this goes not just for government employees, but also for many private employees, especially the younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, and so on. Please understand this. Your obligation, your paycheck is coming because of what you are required to do professionally. And if you get this thing confused, you are going to be punished, and that's what I'm seeing happening now. Now let's take a quick look at, I told you already that there are 21 million Bitcoins only, and that because that is seen as something that is a limited supply, people keep purchasing more, and that raises the value. But what happens is there are three things that people are looking at. First mechanism is search for a superior store of value, meaning when investors fear inflation, they seek safe haven assets. One is of course gold, and gold is an asset, it's neutral, and that is something that people are seeking, and you are seeing gold prices go up. In addition to that, they are also trying to invest in Bitcoin because they feel that Bitcoin is something that is fixed, that cannot be changed, and therefore it has some value, although Bitcoin does not have an asset behind it. So if you take a look at the left chart here, this chart illustrates a stark contrast between the accelerating expansion of the United States M2 money supply. This is one of the parameters that the Fed tracks carefully, and the Bitcoin's predictable decelerating issuance schedule, because we told you about how there are only 21 million Bitcoin. Now if you look at, I'm just going to run it down. In 2010, if you look at M2, it was 8.5, I don't remember the units here, but it's 8.5, and now you can see it's slowly going up. In 2013 it became 10.5, and let's just run up to 2022, it was at 21.6, and now it is sitting at 23.5. This is 2025. On the other hand, if you take a look at Bitcoin, the number of Bitcoins mined in 2010 was 5.2, and slowly the number has gone up, and now it stands at 19.8. So there's only 1.2 million Bitcoins left to be mined. Now there are also other stories coming around that Bitcoins are vulnerable to quantum computing, and therefore there is a hard fork being planned, meaning like you will be given two sets of identical Bitcoin. One is called the hardened Bitcoin and the other one is the classic Bitcoin. I'm not going to go into all that. Only if you own a Bitcoin you should be worrying about those things. Let's take a look at how this affects a typical investor portfolio. Usually what people used to have are only two things: stocks and bonds. If you want aggressive growth, you put 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, and if you wanted more tempered regular growth, you put 40% in stocks and 60% in bonds. However, now if you look at it, what are the different things that have come into play? First of all, the stocks have become even bigger. They are sitting at 40% of allocation. Bonds have come down to 20%, and then you have real estate, which is close to 25%. What that means is many Americans have much of their assets in real estate and in stocks. Also, gold is going up. It has come up to 10%, and the new one, digital assets such as Bitcoin, is slowly coming up to 5%. So this is the other thing that is driving the growth of the value of Bitcoin. The second mechanism is what is going to happen if the Bitcoin keeps rising in price. So if the Bitcoin keeps going up, what happens? More and more dollars will be used to buy that, and when more dollars are used to buy that, then those dollars are actually moving. How does that happen? Capital held in USD, that is United States dollars denominated assets like savings accounts or bonds. That's where you take the money out and you buy a Bitcoin, $127,000. The funds are moved to a digital currency exchange, Coinbase for example, to purchase the Bitcoin. Now what happens is the capital is secured on the Bitcoin network outside the traditional finance system. And this is very, very important. Remember this, Bitcoin transactions are outside the SWIFT system. And I'll come to that in just a moment. So this flow represents the direct challenge to the US's network effect. As more capital makes this journey, it reduces the pool of liquidity available in the traditional financial world, weakening the dollar's systemic importance. That is the most important one. Now let's take a look at the third mechanism, a neutral alternative in geopolitics. The US dollar status as the world's reserve currency grants it immense power. Today we are still saying that 59% of the US dollar is being used outside of the US for doing transactions. Now what happens is Bitcoin offers a politically neutral, borderless alternative for international trade and settlement, posing a long-term risk to the petrodollar system. Viewers, if you think the text size is too small, I would request you to watch it on your phone, and then you can pinch the screen and you can make it bigger. because we have tried our best to try and keep these fonts readable, but sometimes these are not possible, and you can either watch it on your television where you will be able to read even the smaller font, or if you are watching it on your phone, use your fingers to pinch it, then you can grow the font size. So what are the 4 different things of United States petrodollar system? Traditional banking, it is permission, that is, it is access is controlled by institutions. Slow settlement, it takes 1 to 3 business days. I transfer some money from United States bank to a bank in India, it takes 2 to 3 business days before the settlement happens. It is censorship prone. Somebody is tracking all this. You could get asked questions as to why you are transferring. There are limits on the amount of money that can be transferred, and unless the explanation is something that is legal or acceptable, the transfer may not go through. Also, all these things happen within the limited operating hours of a bank. Now take a look at what happens if you try to transfer the same kind of money using Bitcoin network. It's permissionless. That means anyone with an internet connection can do it. Next, fast settlement. Settlement happens in a matter of minutes, not days. And it is censorship resistant. What does that mean? No central party can look or block valid transactions, and it's always on, like 24/7, it's always on, and therefore Bitcoin gives a much bigger, if you want it, for the lack of a better word, fluidity. So that anytime you want to transfer money, you can transfer money. The identity of the coin is not known, the owner's identity is not known, there is a fair amount of privacy, and this drives all governments mad that they are seeing so much money go out of the traditional system into Bitcoin, and that's why as the Bitcoin goes up, the dollar weakens, although it might not be obvious to us right from day one, but that is exactly what is happening. These are theoretical mechanisms, 3 mechanisms by which a scarce decentralized asset like Bitcoin competes with a government-issued fiat currency. The effects described are part of a long-term economic and technological shift. So that's all we have. But let me just tell you one more thing. How are countries combating this? How are the countries trying to fight this thing out? So let me tell you what I'm seeing happening. It is imminent now in Europe as well as in Great Britain. They are going to have centralized bank digital currency, and the CBDC will see Bitcoin as a direct threat, and that could in fact lead to a collapse of Bitcoin, because some of these countries might ban using the Bitcoin in their geographical boundaries. So the first domino could be United Kingdom, because you saw Keir Starmer saying that he's going to establish new thing called digital ID, and God only knows what it really means, but he has said that that is a new thing. People are still reading the fine print. It could be a precursor before they come up with CBDC, but most important thing is once that comes into play, all paper money vanishes. Everything has to be done based on bank-to-bank transactions, which means you could be monitored. You could also be limited on how much money you can transfer. We've already talked about how Spain is not allowing more than 3,000 euros per transaction. So a lot of pain coming down the road. I'm going to do an additional monologue in a few days' time. I'm still doing the research on that, the comparison of stable coin versus Bitcoin as to how the United States is trying to combat the Bitcoin. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.